welcome to Guy Cocker's Video Games Podcast, episode 10 on 24th of June 2013. I'm your host, Guy Cocker, and this week's show is a mobile special, as I'm joined by some of the best iOS and Android developers in the UK to discuss the current state of the market. And of course, I'll be discussing this week's news, your feedback, and giving away some cool prizes as well. My first guest created one of the first truly successful iPhone games, Rolando, which made him a millionaire, at least according to The Guardian. He also created Okabu on PlayStation Network, but is returning to mobile for his next project, which he'll be announcing soon. Please join me in welcoming Simon Oliver from handcircus.
Hello.
Hi Simon, we're in your office as well now. So
we are,
Thank you very much for lending us the space.
Very welcome.
How are things in the mobile development world?
Very busy, very busy. It's been fun moving back from PlayStation 3 back to iOS. Obviously it'll be in a couple of years and things move unbelievably quickly in the mobile space. So it's been interesting kind of getting back up to speed, but the new project's been a lot of fun. Started working on it since early last year and we're really ramping up and getting busy now.
Cool, there's a lot of anticipation around it, so prepare yourself to have me try and tease some details out of you later in the show. My second guest has spent over 20 years working for the likes of Bullfrog, Acclaim and Criterion Studios on games including Dungeon Keeper and Burnout Paradise even. And his startup studio Fireproof Games made last year's BAFTA-winning iPad game, The Room. His name is Barry Meade. Barry, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thanks very much for joining me, Barry. You've travelled a bit farther than everyone else today to be here in Shoreditch. So thank you very much.
Well, I'll get extra beer then.
And my third guest previously worked at both Hello Games on the critically acclaimed Joe Danger series and the Microsoft-owned Lionhead and Fable. He's Lionhead on Fable even. He now heads up the newly created games team at ustwo Studios, who have made Whale Trail and the recently released Blip Blup. His name is Dan Gray. Dan, thanks very much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So you're a fellow, like Simon, fellow Shoreditch.
Yeah, I am resident. Now. Yeah, recently. Yeah,
moved down from Guildford.
Yeah, well, up from Guildford. It's taken a little bit of getting used to.
So how's it going? I mean, you just released Blip Blup, and that was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was last month. I mean, it's gone really well actually. I mean, in terms of what we wanted to get out of it, it was very much an experiment in terms of doing a simultaneous release, trying different sort of business models across platforms, and we've done all right. What we wanted to set out to do, we've done. And it's kind of about now just getting our heads down and getting straight into new stuff.
Good stuff. All right, well, we'll talk about that in a sec. This week's show is a mobile special, as I mentioned, so the focus will be mobile games. We'll still be running down the week's news, looking at what games you can play this week and talking about what the guests and I have been up to. But please, whatever you think about the show, email podcast@guycocker.com and let me know what you think. Now, before we begin, I'm going to announce the winners of last week's competition. We had 5 copies of Dungeons & Dragons Chronicles of Mystara to give away on Xbox 360, courtesy of Capcom. All you needed to do was tell us the name of the 2 classic arcade games that this package reworked. The answers were Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystara, and the winners are Chris Ford, Eric Song, Anthony Chesson, Andrew McIntyre, and Kevin J. Ivil. And I've been told to pronounce that specifically as Ivil, so hopefully I've got that right this time. Congratulations to you all. I'll get those codes over to you as soon as possible. This week, we have 5 copies of Blip Blup to give away, the previously mentioned from ustwo. Now, Dan, I'm going to spring this on you. Can you think of an appropriately difficult question for this?
Yeah, I saw the question you have, but then I realised I wouldn't be able to say anything past that point.
Right.
Someone...
Well, the one I have here is to win. All you have to do is tell us which famously trendy area London ustwo are based in, of London that you guys are based in. What do you think? Is that
I think that's all right. I think it's going to be a quick fire Google search to find out who the winner is.
All right, so which area of London are ustwo based in? If you can get your answer to podcast@guycocker.com before the 1st of July, you'll be in with a chance of winning, and I will announce the winners on next week's show. Alright guys, I want to start the show a little bit differently this time. Rather than talking about the news, let's talk about your studios, what you're working on, if you can say of course, and what your ambitions are in mobile gaming. So Dan, let's start with you. Tell us a bit about how you got your start in mobile gaming and a bit of your background in general and what you're currently working on.
Yeah, well, this is kind of a new thing for me. I joined ustwo about 4 months ago now with the kind of remit to put a team together and make some groundbreaking mobile titles. The first of which I can't talk too much about. It's, at the minute, we've got an internal name of Project Tower. We'll be doing like a formal public release next month, which will be super exciting. We've also got other stuff going on for Whale Trail. So we've got a TV series that we've been working on, which is a little bit outside the box. So, you guys that know Whale Trail, you know the characters that are in there, and we've sort of put some time and effort into creating a pilot for it. So that's getting all the suits made. Mm-hmm. We've got like full suits in the office. People have been walking around as Whale Trail characters in the office. So getting on with stuff like that and sort of expanding that game into other territories as well, and sort of just getting our heads down, creating a new games team, and just going through sort of vigorous prototyping sessions.
So Whale Trail was released, I think, was it 2012 or 2011? I'm trying to remember.
2011.
2011, but actually the games team within ustwo is fairly new. And I mean, tell us a little bit about ustwo and the development in general there, 'cause it's mostly not games, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the games team in particular, we're sort of sectioned off. They sort of put us in this little basement, like the games guys who spend Wednesday nights playing Settlers of Catan, while the rest of the people are, upstairs working away on client work. But half the team that's there was the team who made Whale Trail, who were already working upstairs on client work and such, and really wanted to do something that they were passionate about, something that sort of really juiced them. So they decided to make Whale Trail. Obviously, that did quite well. That team as well made Blip Blup, and the new hires came on towards the end of that project. So we've got new guys. We've got myself, who I think they hired just because they were desperate. They've got a great artist called Ken Wong, who was previously working at Spicy Horse on the Alice series. Has also just released Hacky Cat for iOS as well, which did quite well. And also a guy called Will Sykes, who's just joined us from Sony as well. But we are actually looking for one more person. So if there's anyone who is, I'm going to get the plug in. So we're actually looking for one more person. So a sort of an art generalist, because we're such a small team. We need someone who can do 2D art, 3D art. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. Basically, the impossible, which is an artist who can do everything. So we're still on the lookout for that person to complete the set of 9 people.
And you're across both iOS and Android.
Yeah,
your
yeah,
Whale Trail was and still is?
Whale Trail's on both.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Whale Trail's on both.
And so your new games are all going to be multi-platform?
I think that's the plan.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and Barry, you've spoken about the politics of working for big studios. I know, Dan, you've worked at big studios as well, but particularly Criterion, you kind of found a little bit punishing. I think you've spoken out in the past. What's the difference?
I mentioned it once.
You mentioned it once,
yes.
and I picked up on it. That is my journalistic style. So what's the difference between working for the big players and working for yourself, if you can sum it up?
Where to start? I mean, it's very hard to compare. On the one level, it's very hard to compare the two because they're so different. It's not a like-for-like comparison. But in other areas, such as creatively, it's no different at all. Like when we started doing The Room, we had no experience of mobile or making games on mobile, but it didn't in any way intimidate us at all. Like we never thought, oh, our skills aren't transferable onto this platform because we've been doing console games for years. If you can make a game on an electronic device, then that's it. You can probably do it on any device and probably do a good job of it as well. So in lots of ways they're similar, in lots of ways they're different. I mean, as far as what it's like to develop and what, to say, the studio culture is like and different, again, that's completely down to the individual. I think it is what you make it. I'm quite sure that we have a much more stripped down, laid back work environment than we did when we worked for EA, but at the same time I'm quite sure there are mobile developers out there who have quite a regime in place and a very staked out hierarchy and delivery dates and producers and all the rest of the stuff that we had when we were at EA. So I'm sure there's just a huge spread of differences between mobile studios and between mobile studios and console development studios. It's like I said, it's what you make it yourself.
So your ethos, and this sounds very simple, but your ethos, I think I've read this before, you boil it down to just make games that people will want to play and not overthink the marketing and everything else.
No, and don't try and make your magnum opus either. It's although that's good and everyone loves those games, and I love Rockstar because they tend to do that. But I mean. We just feel lucky to get the chance, to be honest, to make games for a living. And so we're not, if we can make something that other people like, that makes us just as happy as making something that we particularly like. And by that, that's not to say that we're not making the games we want to make. We absolutely are. In fact, I would say that's what drives us. But we're not trying to be clever with it either. We're not trying to make ourselves look good by doing it. Yeah, we're trying to make something that anyone who likes games would look at it and go, hey, that's a pretty good effort, They did a good job on that. That's kind of what motivates us.
So a lot of mobile developers and probably a lot of people in general would go, Barry, that sounds great, but how did you manage to get The Room so prominently featured not just in journalist circles, but on the iTunes store, and then go on to win that Game of the Year award. Is that just the result of making a game that people want?
I think. I mean, it's like, you know, I've talked about this before, where it's easy to look back on something and start, you know, lionizing it and saying that, you know, well, you know, we did an expert job of the AI or whatever it is, you know. It's very easy for us to look back and say it's obvious why it was a hit. Well, it isn't really. We never expected, like, we were always confident in the game, and we thought that, you know, we knew ourselves that we'd made a good game, and that we knew that certain other people who knew what they were talking about would look at it and go, yeah, that's a pretty good game. But we had no idea what the market would say. You know, we expected to lose money on it, like everybody else does on their first game.
So just a bit of context, you were doing you're predominantly like an art studio.
Yeah, we're an outsourcing studio. Yeah, and so we'd been at it for 4 years as an art studio, making other people's console games for them, and you know, that's such a crappy business that it took us 4 years to make enough money to hire a programmer. And then when we got the programmer in, Rob, we just made the room immediately, because we were probably like, you know, pent up frustrations of not being able to make our own games for 4 years. And, you know, that's why we got into it. That's why we started Fireproof, was to make our own stuff, because we knew we had games in us, but we just had no money or resources to make it happen. And so when Unity and iOS came along, it was a perfect storm for us.
Okay. And so we will talk more about the game itself, but this is the big story, where it's like, it just seems to a lot of people that I talk to, this dark art of how Apple in particular exists and operates in terms of promoting games.
Just on your point there about you know, how did the room get ubiquitous? I don't know. None of us know. Like, we're actually quite oblivious to how ubiquitous the game is. I mean, we keep hearing back from other people that, wow, you know, everyone's seen your game, but we don't know that. I mean, we you know, we get emails from people saying we love your game, but so does everybody. You know, it's not.
I think that certainly from my perspective, looking at it when it first came out, I think the reason that Apple wanted to feature it is it worked so well on the device, and it looked beautiful as well. And it's such a great experience for the iPad.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's something I couldn't imagine playing on anything else. It feels like a personal experience, like a book.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like a little world you want to dive into. And I think having something that looks so good. You know, Apple are always looking for things to showcase the device, and I think, you know, that was a key part of it. It just worked well. It was designed. It felt like it was designed just for the iPad.
Yeah, it was.
It looked so
it was. And this is what I'm saying about, you know, just as we're not trying to make games that only to make us happy, we're also not trying to make games to make any other individuals or groups of people happy either. We're trying to make a game that, you know, objectively achieves what any gamer would assume is. If you ask them what a good game looks like, it's slick, it looks good, it plays well, it's got a great control system, That's, you know, they're the elements you want to get in place. And beyond that, it's just your own personal taste. And if other people are buying into it, they're basically saying, I like your taste, I agree with your taste. You know, that's all that transaction really is, like music and a music fan. You know, it's the same deal. But don't try and contrive it. If you contrive it to be a business and to be successful, you'll fail. Or maybe you won't fail, but you certainly, you know, the one thing I can say about the room is that it was, you know, it's completely uncynical, the game. We made it like only to amuse ourselves, and only because we wanted to make this game, and only because no one else was doing it. No one else was making this kind of game, so we thought we'll try it, you know. And that there's no kowtowing to a market or a perceived audience or anything like that. And I think that comes across in it, you know. Like I said, with music, people fall in love with music for that reason, because someone's putting what they really believe and what their soul is saying on the music, on the record. And that is much more interesting than fucking Pop Idol, you know, or any of this other stuff, which will be gone in 2 years' time. Every bit of it will be erased from history, you know. But the real stuff stays.
Sure. I mean, Pop Idol is still successful, though. I mean, I want to pick up on that point. Where do you think that, because you've worked for Criterion, I'd say there's quite a lot of personality and, you know, personal vision on those particular games. Yeah. Do you think it's still possible?
I think any game that's good has elements of what I'm talking about. Any game that's successful, there's someone or team or someone behind it driving it, making sure that it's bang on, and that they're making it for a reason, and that it's, you know, it's hitting what people expect to see in great stuff, great work. And I think most of it, like, if you remember back to the days when mobile started out, there was all of these games that people like me and us used to sneer at mobile phones. They're not really games. It's just I don't know what it is. It's like, you know, a crossword puzzle on a phone or whatever. But all of those games that are the outliers, like Angry Birds and Cut the Rope and all of those, are true mobile games, truly made for the touchscreen, truly speak to the device that people have bought. It's bloody obvious why they're really successful. It's not because they're stupid, it's because they're great.
Right.
You know?
So Simon, you had this a couple of years before this, I guess. You were the poster boy for iOS gaming, I would say. I think the quotes were the first good game for iOS. And
yeah, I mean, we were lucky, I guess, in terms of the opportunity. It wasn't so crowded as it is now. So we launched in December 2008. So, like, maybe 5 months after the App Store opened.
2 months after we started our business.
Really? Yeah. So, yeah, it was amazing at the time. I mean, nobody knew what we were doing. I mean, nobody knew. Everyone was just exploring this device, exploring touch screens. Nobody knew what kind of mechanics would work on there, and a lot of time we just spent prototyping, thinking, well, so would people be comfortable with gestures? Would people be comfortable with tilt? Initially I was like, nobody's going to want to tilt, they're going to be on a bus, they're going to be moving around. So initially for the first Rolando, it was almost like an RTS, so you kind of dragged, selected, and then did gestures to make them do things. So you're panning around, had different characters rolling all around the scene. But the one thing that we certainly found from starting up is you have to, like Barry says, design for the device. You can't try and like get something in, like claw something in. And so that's why naturally as we implemented tilt, that informed the game, and so the game became more of a platform game. Although there's still kind of the elements of controlling different creatures and moving them around. So yeah, for us it was just so playful and so fun being there, and it really felt like the Wild West. I mean, to be honest, it still feels like the Wild West. I mean, it feels like the Wild West in terms of business model, it feels like the Wild West in terms of interaction, in terms of audience. The audience now is insanely huge. There's 600 million iOS devices, 900 million Android devices, and it's very hard really now to understand what their customer is. It's not a market segment you can look at and go that is a mobile phone player. I think the nice thing is one of the things that Cappy have shown with Sword and Sorcery is there's so many players there that if you target one section of that, you could still have a huge audience, and you can make something that is really beautiful and targeted to just that audience. You don't need to make something that's really homogenous.
You can go niche.
Yeah, and still have a huge audience that you can sell to. So, I mean, at the moment, I think mobile is massively exciting. It was weird for us going from iOS to PlayStation 3. I think for us, working certainly as a kid, I'd look at console games and go, "This is the ultimate way to make games." And I played, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, all the way up through all the consoles. And then having had the success of Rolando, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to make a console game. And I think it was weird going there, and I didn't enjoy it as much as doing mobile. I think my background's web, so I started off doing websites and Flash games, and then moved into mobile. And web is like the ultimate Wild West. There's no platform holders, there's no format QA, there's none of that. And mobile is kind of this weird middle ground between the two. And I think for me that's where I'm happiest, because there's a relatively number of limited devices you can target for. And there's people that pay. The payment system certainly on iOS and Android and Amazon, pretty good. So that there's a way to get your games to consumer for them to pay. So it was massive.
I mean, you guys are slightly older than me, but to me it seems like where we're at now in terms of mobile development feels like the old school time of having 5 people in a basement somewhere smashing out PC games.
Which is exactly why I think it's so exciting, because I wasn't one of the first wave of game developers by any stretch, but I mean I started in 1990, 91. So I was a fanboy before I was a developer, just like most people are now. But it absolutely was like that, and it's one of the reasons why console development became so stultifying. Was there's no niches on console, right? There's like 3 big ones, and that's it. There's no, and part of the problem gaming's always had is that there was never any infrastructure to support niche products, and gaming would never be mass market unless there's niches, like there is on TV and like on radio and like in books. Then how can it be mass market until you get into that? And what we needed was a platform to come along to allow that to happen, and iOS has really made that happen, I think.
So with your various teams going around the room, so your team is 8, Dan?
Yeah, we've got 8 people, working on 2 games.
And Barry, how big is your team you're working on?
Now we're 14 as of this month. Yeah.
And Simon,
we're 5 plus 3 part-time contractors.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I should add, though, that the room was made by 3 people.
Right.
Yeah, so everyone else is an artist.
Right. Okay.
So we've just hired like our 2nd and 3rd programmer.
And so I want to pick up on Simon, when you were originally doing Rolando and you were moving into this in 2008. It must were people saying to you, "Why are you working on this platform?" Because it must have been, now it's a fairly solid bet. You know, lots of people are doing it, but you must have been.
At the time, I think there was a perception that there was an opportunity there, but nobody was taking it seriously for games. I remember there was in kind of early 2008, late 2007, they released an unofficial SDK, and you could like hack together stuff. And I made a little game that was like a Lemmings game. You could like drag tiles around and make them move around. I was like, "This is awesome!" And I was just showing it to everyone, going, "This is amazing." And a lot of people were just unconvinced. But I think the thing that I liked about it was that it was, you know, this really interesting device. You know, it had multi-touch, it had accelerometer, it didn't have buttons, and I've always been really interested in those kind of weird experiments of like different input devices and different, you know, screens and different devices, and this just seemed like a really good place to do something interesting. And I think the biggest thing was, you know, like you're saying, they let anyone play, right? You didn't need to have, you know, $100,000. You didn't need to have a massive team. You didn't have to have a secure location like a lot of other companies have. You didn't need to have, you know, huge amounts of money to buy the dev kit. The dev kit was your phone. Everyone, you know, that had one of these devices could effectively be a developer for 59 quid.
And it makes you more creative because of that.
Yeah, that's it. You know, it was like, how do you design, you know, certain games without the features you expect, without buttons? And I think, you know, in the early days, a lot of people were just taking, and certainly the bigger companies were like, we need to get something on there, so that we're just taking games and slapping on, like, on-screen joysticks and just these...
Which happened for a few years, right? I mean,
it's still happening
it's
now.
Still happening, arguably.
So, yeah, it was really fun, you know, being part of that. And it's fun coming back now. So, you know, certainly when we left, there was no iPads, you know, it's just so Tilt now is, you know, I don't know if I'd ever do a game with Tilt again if I wanted to support iPad. You know, it's like playing games like Real Racing, which are awesome, but like, you know, I don't think that Tilt works on a device that big. So it's like trying to think of something just designed for something, such a wide range of devices as well. So obviously the screen space in the iPhone is so much tinier, so certain more complex interactions. With the new game, you've got some creative tools that let you kind of create and sculpt and do stuff in there. And like trying to get that to work on the iPhone is a very different prospect to doing stuff on the iPad. So we targeted doing iPhone first and then scaling up from there. So that seems to work. But the other way around is a lot harder to do. It's interesting because that's what the Supercell guys do, I believe. They target iPad and then...
Yeah. And that's the way we're doing things at the minute. I assume that's the way you did things as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I think it's
just a bit more scope for I don't say creativity on the iPad, it's a bit wrong word, but there's more scope for doing it's easier to envision something on an iPad, I think, first, and then you can sort of play with it afterwards and knock it down. But there's something about the larger screen just makes it a bit more
sexy.
So just to finish off, because we've got loads of questions from Twitter and email as well. Simon, you moved from mobile, PlayStation 3, and then back again. What, 18 months on since Ockaboo? How would you describe your experience on PlayStation?
Yeah, I mean, so it was a valuable experience. You know, it really helped us understand the game making process. Obviously, it's quite an unorthodox path we've taken into game development. I don't have any console background, no studio background. Going from making Flash games to making, you know, C++ game on iOS, and then trying to take on the PlayStation 3, and then, you know, moving back. It's kind of like, feel like we're home again now. So yeah, it's been really good. I think that we're using Unity as well. Like, I think both you guys are doing it, and for us, it's just been, you know, the best tool. It's really allowed us to focus. You know, we're not a team of technologists, so you know, for us, we can make, you know, games a lot quicker. We're putting more effort into building the game and making the game great, rather than, you know, building out an engine and building out libraries. So for us, yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's the same as what we were discussing before. I mean, in terms of just getting a prototype together, super quick. Yeah. Like in a week, we can test like a core mechanic for whatever it is in 1 week.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I know as well. You got the Blip Blup Android version going in a day or a couple of days.
Yeah, it's just like
there are console teams as well that use Unity for that only for doing prototypes, because they can just whip them up. You know.
Yeah,
and the guys who played it are using it for the next game as well, aren't they? After Fallout from Limbo, they're using Unity for that, I think.
From the mill?
No, from Played It. So the Limbo guys.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay,
Unity as well.
Right.
So it seems more and more people are now going, this is actually pretty viable.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you care about, you know, if you're content creators, then there's no reason why you shouldn't. But if you're technologists and technology led, then I can understand maybe why you wouldn't. But if you're the kind of person, I guess, like all of us who are content creators, why would you not? Then?
I mean, it comes back to that thing about just being able to be creative without any kind of overhead. Like, as I said, like we spent
removing barriers.
Exactly. Like, we spent a couple of weeks and we ended up with like 8 game prototypes. all just testing one core mechanic, and we can just cut it after a week. Like, it's not like we're going to spend 3 months trying to get something together and then go, nope, it's not working, guys. Cut it 1 week.
Fire that guy. It's not working.
Fire that guy. Go home. Go home. It's not working.
Well, I was lucky enough to have loads of questions via Twitter and an email, so I really want to put them to you guys while I've got you in the room. Tom Curtis, aka @Teffers on Twitter, says microtransactions. It's amazing we haven't spoken about this already. It's been half an hour and we haven't spoken about microtransactions. Yes, they're inevitable, but which do you guys prefer? Pay for cosmetic changes that don't change gameplay, or pay to win / advance, where the items make the game easier or shorter? Do you have any opinion on microtransactions in general, you guys? I'll start with you, Dan.
Yeah, well, I think it depends on the genre, and I think it depends on how it's implemented. So, for me, for example, I've probably spent about $160 on League of Legends, which is a free game over the course of the last 3 years.
How much time have you spent on this? Hundreds of hours.
Yeah, I've probably played about 800 matches at about 40 minutes each, so that's far too much. Either way, it's because it's built in such a way that it allows sort of the team at Riot to give you champions on a rotation. So they give you the items on rotation for you to try, and you're like, yeah, I kind of like this a little bit. And because it's completely multiplayer, I'm seeing other people, and I'm seeing people get one up on me. Therefore, I want what they have. And as long as those social interactions are in place, I think it really drives that IAP. And I never feel like I'm not blocked out of content. No one's got one over on me. You know, it's not supremacy goods in the sense that it's pay to win. Which is strange, because as far as I know, the sort of mentality behind it in the East, in China, for example, is completely different. Like, it's pay to win, that's fine, everyone's fine with it. But we seem to have like a really severe backlash on that.
A cultural difference of some sort.
Like, I don't walk into my friend's house and say, you know, you have a grand piano. Why? like I don't get annoyed about that. It's someone's experience. If they want to pay money, then they pay money. That, you know, and we're not sort of, us as a team, we're not putting ourselves down one road or the other. But one thing that we will do is we'll never let a business model affect the game.
Right.
Like, it's about making the game, and as long as we can do that in the best way possible, you know, we're not gonna just spam people with ads and say, you know, you need to pass this to win, you need to pass that to win. It's not something we want to do. But I do think it depends on the genre.
What about you, Barry? What's your opinion on microtransactions? Do you think they're viable? Are there any other business models that work for you guys? And obviously, the Room was a premium game.
No. If we ever did IAP in our games, we would design a game around IAP. We wouldn't just shove it in. And I mean, for the moment, we don't have that game idea, so we're not putting them in. And as it is, the Room is a very immersive game anyway, and we want to try and capture the player a little bit. And yeah, like you said, you know, having ads flashing up or requester boxes and all of that just would break the fourth wall like too much.
Yeah, so I was saying about sort of Project Tower that we're doing is that it's very much a premium experience, and the minute anyone gets taken out of that experience, it's the worst thing.
It's exactly. It's so, but I mean, as far as, you know, the morals of it and all of that, I think we're pretty agnostic. I don't care one way or the other how a player pays for his game or his or her game. It's, you know, it's completely irrelevant, really.
Do you think
what I object to about IAP is that if you want to go down that road, it really limits what you can do with your game. I think it limits you. Like, I don't think we ever could have come up with a game like The Room if we were thinking about IAP. Right. So that's why, to one degree, that's why we're against it, because we don't like the design limitations that it puts on you, or the experience that you can give your players. And it does. It absolutely does lock you down into certain, you know, this far and no further you can go with your design. And so that's why we're not interested in it. It's not because it's not for you know, snobbery or anything like that. It's just we've got too much to explore yet. You know, too many ideas.
At what point do you guys think about that? Because the way that we try and do things at the moment is that we try and make the best game we can, and then towards the end try and decide the best business model that'll serve that game.
Right. I suppose I imagine when we do our next game, there'll probably be a point where we'll go, is there any IAP in this game? And we'll all go, no. It's not like we're completely divorced from it. It's like we do pay attention to it. It's just it's not on our radar as a day-to-day thing, and it's not And like I say, we enjoy making immersive experiences for the player, and so I don't think that for us it doesn't really ever come up as a question. It's nothing we agonise over at all. Put it that way.
So it's a similar ethos between you guys, Barry and Dan, where it's sort of make the game first and then figure out how you're going to make money from it. After.
Yeah, I mean, but
a lot of commercial guys would look at you and go, "Oh my gosh, what are these?"
They would. I mean, I think that with the room, excuse me. There's nothing wrong with the premium market. I mean, the problem is that the reason why it's talked down so much, I think, in the press and in forums and when you go to excuse me, E3 or any of these places, the general thought. I think the reason it's really spoken down in the industry is because you can't make zillions doing it, being a premium title on iOS, right? Not anymore. No one can replicate Angry Birds again. So. Whereas if you read the press about most of the startups, either here or in California or in LA, they're all in it to sell the company. Every single one of them. They're all getting investor backed. They all want to buy out in 5 years. Every single one of them. And this is their business model. And so they have to see success and they have to get, and so they're spending huge amounts of money buying up users to add to their, daily user. Yeah. And so this is that's a trillion miles away from where we are, the kind of games we're making. And, right. I would never like to see us go there, really, and that just seems very strange to me. It's like, if you're not making it for the love of it, no one else is going to like your stuff, right? It doesn't. If you're just doing it to be that cynical about it and that calculated about it, then you don't deserve success in my book. You should fail, and it happens a lot.
We had a bit of an experiment. So with Blip, for example, we set out just to make a good puzzle game, and then towards the end, we decided to go. We're going to try paid and we're going to try a free version. We thought, for us, we know it's not going to make us a ton of money, so we would like to try and get it in as many people's hands as possible. So we released a free version, and that had on release too many ads in it.
Yeah.
So we've scaled that back since, and I'm pretty certain that we're not going to do that again.
Well,
we've learned from it.
Well,
now,
we did the same as well. Effectively, with the phone version of the room was a free game as well, with a gate in it, which is IP, right?
Yeah.
You can dress it up.
To unlock, or was it per?
It's a single just unlock to buy it. And to be fair, we didn't want to do that. We did it because of we couldn't stop iPhone 4 owners buying the game, even though it didn't work on their device.
Okay.
It only works on the 4S.
Yeah. Right.
So we, rather than rip people off, we said, right, we'll have to go and make it free and then put an in-app purchase so that the people who have the 4 don't get ripped off. And that's why we did it. So, but it was, we went that route as well. We made it free to download. We put IAP in it. It wasn't a huge success for us at all in comparison to the iPad version, but whatever way you can get it to market, great, good for you. There's no right or wrong way to do it. All I was talking about was that business model, which is completely centered on your business and not what you're making. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And there's two different ways of thinking about it. And I think in our case, we still want to be a successful business. We'd love to make millions, but we want to do it by making great work first. Get the work right first, then you can go and buy your yacht. Whereas other people are like, what they're actually after is the yacht. Right. If you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the difference.
I definitely agree with what you're saying about designing right at the beginning and choosing, whether or not something's going to be right for free to play. I think so. Our next game is free to play, but for us, it was free to play from the very start. Yeah. I think for the kind of game we were trying to make, so we're making something which is very much service based. It's a world that you can dip into, so elements of maybe elements of MMOs. It's kind of very live online place to play with your friends and visit, and it grows over time. And I think.
Are you allowed to say this, by the way?
I can speak very generally about it. So there's the kind of top level objectives we're trying to do. So it is free to play. It's going to be iOS, it's going to be Android, and this is one of the objectives for the game. I think for us, looking at that, one of the options is to go subscription based. But I think at the moment you can have recurring subscriptions on iOS and games. And I think for us it's very interesting to see what you can do with free to play. And when we moved back to iOS and Android, it was spent a lot of time trying to understand how free to play could work for us and how we could deliver the kind of experience. I think you are right. There's a lot of people in the market that are producing very simple games, which based around the business model you describe. I think for us, there is a lot of opportunity to do something where you can get the game into a lot of people's hands, and if you can deliver something where you make sure that the baseline experience, the free experience, is great, designed so these people can really enjoy it, and if they're really enjoying it, there's things they can spend money on. I think that's what we're really aiming for. It's interesting seeing guys like Nimblebit all of their games, they tune with the IP turned off. So they give out to beta players and say, play this game, are you enjoying it? You can't buy anything. And then they'll tune it and make sure that's a great experience. And then on top of that,
introduce it.
Yeah, so it's almost like, people are talking about it being, like a hobby. I had somebody we speak to having a really good description of like, if you can make it so this is their people's favourite hobby and they're doing it, they don't feel like they're being exploited, they're just having a great experience playing for free, and they love it and they want to get a thing in the game that they really like, or I don't have a problem with necessarily paying to skip, provided that the weights are balanced and appropriate. There's the classic triangle of skill or time or money, and if you can have any one of these things or a different balance of these things, you find the balance that's right for the player. So that's something that we're looking to at the moment. I think it feels like we're on the right course to deliver something which will still mark the kind of level that we want to hit.
So something will be free, something possibly free and massively multiplayer, and presumably will have that sort of production quality of.
Yeah, so we're really focusing on make something that's really delightful to play. Make this world that people just feel invested in. They love to visit, they love to play in, and so that's a key part to this. But it is something that fits that model of microtransactions and free play.
And can you recount that story that you just told us before the podcast, where you were doing microtransactions before, basically having to sell separate versions of Rolando?
So
microtransactions were available.
So when Rolando 1 came out, the only options were, I think it was the game called I Shoot. I don't know if you remember, it was kind of Scorch-air style game. And that got to number 1 on the free chart. And as a result, cross promotion for the paid version, they got to number 1 on the paid chart, and so everybody leapt on this, and it was successful, because obviously you get a lot of awareness in the free chart. If you get near the top, then a lot of people do transfer because they're aware your product and they buy a paid one, and that was interesting. But then when Rolando 2 came out, there was the option of doing microtransactions on paid games, and then. So we released an episodic version, which was going to be 69p plus, buying level packs, per world, find it as level packs. But then Apple changed the rules so you could have microtransactions on free games, which obviously opened up to, the huge number of free-to-play games on iOS. And that, then we lowered the price to free, and it was really interesting kind of seeing, the relative success of the two games, and the paid one actually ended up doing much better than the one within IOP. But I think, content packs doesn't seem to work very well, as far as I'm aware. I think the exception is The Walking Dead.
Right.
The Walking Dead is
an exception.
I think that's the thing.
But it is an exceptional game.
It is.
Right? That's what I'm saying. An exceptional game will come out and do its thing, regardless of the business model.
Absolutely.
It's that opposite way around, like you were talking. Like if you design from the aspect of just making a bloody good game. Right, it should in thery be successful past that point.
And you can bolt on whatever sensible, as long as it's sensible, you kind of bolt on whatever model you want onto it. But it must be ass kicking in some way. It has to be.
Is that the case though? Because a lot of people feel as though even if they make a great game, no one will find it on iOS.
They say that.
Do you know anyone that's made a great game that's completely?
I'm not sure I believe it.
Right,
is the thing, is that I know that there is a. It's very true. Having been in the industry a long time, it's very true that there are really good games that get missed but there isn't that many. There's a myth amongst games developers that there's loads. There isn't.
Right.
Most of the games that fail, even the good ones, even the ones that you might personally like yourself, are doing something wrong that's making it not go over. Right. And most of the games that are really huge, that the same people also hate because they're huge, are probably doing something really, really well that you're just not seeing or you're just not admitting. So I actually don't think there are that many games that are absolute stone cold classics that die to death. I don't think there are any.
Right. Dan, you were saying,
or many anyway.
Again before the show, hopefully you can recount this on the podcast, about the split between Android and iOS owners that are actually purchasing Blip Blup. Usually you think of it, 5% of your users are actually paying for the game or making most of your profits. In this case, it was quite higher on iOS.
Yeah, well, we were kind of fortunate. As I said before, Blip Blup was kind of an experiment for us on both platforms. We were fortunate enough to get a little bit of featuring by Apple for the paid version, but not for the free version, which did bump our sales up a little bit. I think we run about 16% of iOS user base is paid, and I think our Android user base is about 2%, which is interesting. It's the first time we've done a simultaneous release, so it is interesting. So whether we'll release simultaneously again on both platforms, we'll have to assess at the time. But I think if we do, it'll probably be a freemium game as opposed to be premium straight out the gate.
It's worth. Thanks for that. It's worth mentioning if you're interested in the economics of mobile development. It's worth following your studio director Mills on Twitter.
Yes.
He does.
I mean, we're quite open with all our data. Whether or not I want that to happen or not, I don't know.
Okay, carrying on with the questions. Gary Henderson at ghenderson101 says Nintendo say they will never have their top titles on mobile. Why is that? They could literally make millions off old Pokemon ports alone. Why would Nintendo not get involved with mobile?
Because they'll never sell another 3DS.
Right. It's an interesting. It's a follow-on question here from MGP Night Shift, who says, actually no, I think it was someone else that said it, but 3DS development. Are you guys interested in 3DS? The 3DS among games journalist circles from which I frequent seems to be really taking off at the moment. 3DS is doing very well. Have you guys any interested in going back into 3DS, or is it kind of a platform that interests you at all?
I love playing.
Barry's looking very perplexed. So I'll go to you first. What do you think?
Honestly, we would develop for any platform. I mean, we don't really care, to be honest. As long as we're allowed to make a good game, then we would be interested. And actually, we think the Vita is a great platform. Right. It's a bloody good piece of kit. And so, I think actually, long term, we'd love to get the game on Vita because we think it would really work. I think it would be a great version. Whether or not it sells, I think we should make that version because it would just be good.
Do you think you can just talk to Sony though? They seem to be courting indie developers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we will. And when Unity and Sony have gotten the technology together, then I reckon we'll definitely give it a go. 3DS, I don't know. It's not in our sort of DNA. None of us have ever been really handheld gamers, so it's a bit more of a unknown quantity, I think. But otherwise, we'd happily go on any platform that'll have us, to be honest.
Sam, any thoughts on Nintendo? Why they're not involved in mobile? They seem like a prime candidate to get involved.
Do you mean in terms of releasing the titles?
In terms of releasing their back catalogue or even new titles on?
I think Dan's absolutely right. I mean, so in terms of they have the option of selling how many million units of Pokemon on 3DS at what, 40 quid, 30 quid, or they can sell it on iOS where they won't sell it for maybe more than $4.99. And I don't even know. I don't know the numbers, but there's no way that they could possibly make more money in iOS. And as you say, they just have some devices, and it would, the moment that thing is broken, and if they do make any money, they lose all control of the shelves. It'd be like everything.
Can you imagine little Billy at Christmas just going in and saying, "Mum, I want to play Pokemon Stone or whatever's next." And they're going, "Well, we've got an iPad. We'll just get it on iPad. It's fine."
And I think the interesting thing about Nintendo, I mean, the fact they have turned around the 3DS. I mean, everyone wrote that off when it was launched, and now the turnaround is really impressive. And it's the portfolio. Nintendo could just say, put all their studios on. Nobody makes games better than them. They have such internal talent, and however much you can bet against Nintendo, they have so much money in the bank. They have some of the best game developers in the world.
I don't own a 3DS as it stands, but watching people in the office play Animal Crossing recently, I've just been like, I kind of need this. I know it's going to be so bad for me, but I actually really want to do it.
They keep pushing out these killer titles. So
they're doing fine just as they are. That question was from Eric Song. We haven't spoken about Windows Phone development, and would that be more appealing to you guys if it took a more open approach like Android? This question is from Alistair Stevenson, aka Monkey Guru on Twitter, as opposed to a closed ecosystem like iOS. So is Windows Phone at all interesting to you guys?
I actually own a Windows Phone.
Right.
I've got a Windows Phone with me, but I do own an iPad as well.
Right.
I think it's a good platform. As a phone, I really like it as a platform in comparison to iOS and Android. It's just a bit unfortunate that I can't play many games on it. Although I did play Schools of the Shogun on Windows Phone, which is really good.
Which has cross-platform.
Yeah, which is cross-platform,
Any thoughts on Windows Phone, Simon?
I mean, the thing about Windows Phone is no one has any. It's a thing.
Yep.
And if I would have no problem developing games with Windows Phone if there's an audience that would like to buy games, and certainly now they've got the Unity port on there as well. That friction isn't really there. I think there's a confusing point about being an open or a closed platform. I mean, I wouldn't consider iOS being a closed platform. You can within a week you can have a game up on iOS, and unless you've got something, unless you're trying to do something which is modifying the system, in which case, but that doesn't really apply to games. Sure. I'm not making new keyboards. I'm not, selling media players. So for me, it doesn't really make any difference. And there's, the barrier to entry, unless I'm making something that's, extraordinarily violent. Flicker art style.
You're not really, you guys. One question I've got. This is slightly contentious from Bart Harris, who's Bart Harris on Twitter. He says, will there ever be a rival to Sword and Sorcery? Now, I know you guys, that's kind of slightly disrespectful to Blip Blup and The Room and Rolando, but it might lead on to some interesting discussion about your favourite mobile games that aren't made by you guys. I mean, do you think there's a game to rival Sword and Sorcery? This is actually one of my favourites as well, but do you have a particular favourite in the mobile space that's doing some good stuff and no plugging of your own games here?
I was like, it was winding up in my head. I was like, wait till next month.
What have you got any good tips? Scratching our heads here, having a look on their mobile.
Well, I mean, I think they're quite unique in what they do. I don't think any of us could sit here and say, right, okay, this is another Sword and Sorcery on iOS right now.
No.
I take it you guys have played. Sword and Sorcery.
Oh yeah.
I only asked this because I did suggest it at a panel I was sitting on once as one of the best games of the year, and no one else, everyone got blank stares, and no one else had really heard of it.
Well, it's a bit of a Marmite game. I found there's a lot of people who played it and kind of went, what? I think mostly because it's it's very much a story and an adventure as much as it is a game, and some people wanted it to be a bit more gamey.
I think probably like Year Walk probably fills in that same kind of category as well.
Yeah.
It does open the doors for what we could do. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, Walking Dead is one of those as well, where it's so good that it sort of inspires other people to follow it on. And to be fair, Super Brothers has influenced games graphically, but there's no one's ever tried to sort of clone it, so to speak.
In terms of gameplay.
Yeah. I mean, I think graphically it's been a big hit. It's been a big influence on even a lot of the 8-bit stuff that's come out since is very Super Brothers, but. The game itself was very unique to the guys who made it. It's very much their expression, and I don't think anyone would bother trying to rip that off, to be honest. It's like trying to do Journey. I mean, it's kind of stupid.
I think it's that thing you were saying before as well. Like, it's quite obviously a game that was made because they wanted to make it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? It's not because they wanted to. They picked an audience and go, how can we get these guys?
It's not as if there's a market for Super Brothers games. There's only Super Brothers, right?
Well, I think the nice thing is, in terms of art direction, it feels to me like games like, say, Hotline Miami, that have like a really distinct visual style, distinct musical style. This is a similar game. Obviously a very different game, but they're following a similar path. We're like, this is what we're doing. It's nothing like anything else. And I think, again, because the barrier to entry is so low now, it's great that, you can have a couple of people, anywhere, just put it together and get it out there. So I think, we're going to see loads more of that. Loads more of just really brave experiments. Whether it's just from a visual style, or musical style, or, unique collaborations between people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gunpoint as well, which was just a big success story. Just came out. So they're trying to figure out how we move on from that. So this is one that's interesting from MGP Night Shift, which feeds into something that I'm interested to speak to you guys as a journalist about. This question is, are mobile phone gamers, delusional, i.e. they don't call themselves gamers? So people that play Candy Crush, Sudoku, Angry Birds, even draw something. This is a challenge that I always face from the journalism side, is covering mobile games, finding that audience that's interested. Obviously, there's a huge audience out there, but the ones that are interested in actually reading about mobile games. So to answer the first question, are mobile phone gamers delusional, or are they just because they don't generally consider themselves gamers? I mean, everyone's a mobile phone gamer, aren't they?
But then maybe they don't consider themselves self-identify as game enthusiasts. But people that watch films might not consider themselves film enthusiasts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's just indicative of where the sort of medium is right now. Like it's so mainstream now in comparison to what it was 10 years ago that, I like movies. I wouldn't consider myself a film buff. I like music. I wouldn't consider, I think, you can have a mild interest in something. There can be, someone's mum who's on the train on the way to work who's playing Candy Crush, and they don't have to say, I'm a gamer.
It's going to become like TV, right? No one says the same thing about, I watch TV as a hobby,
I think it's great. It's good.
Maybe you don't have to. Maybe that's a sign of how ubiquitous it's becoming. It's like gamers are the ones who are actually, dying out. Or, people who call themselves gamers, and I would include myself in that. But
one question from Ben Summers, which I'm going to paraphrase slightly, is: have you guys been asked to create companion games for I guess so the example he's used here is Fable Kingmaker, and for like a companion app to Fable 3, it seems to be something that he's interested in. No one seems to be doing it, so there must be something getting in the way of it. Is that true?
Sorry, no one seems to be doing what?
No one seems to be making those games as companion apps that complement.
Why would you? I mean, why would you? If you get 6 months and a team of 5 people together, why on earth would they make a crumb of another game? I mean, that just seems like, when there's so much you could do otherwise. So that might be a reason. I don't know.
But
I would say that's a reason.
I guess the assumption is that you guys are always getting approached by Disney to make some I don't know, companion act to Disney Infinity or something. That's
nobody's called.
No one's called it. Must be a misconception. And I think that's probably about it in terms of question. Tom Wallace though finally says, which mobile platform should developers bet on when making their game and why? It's a tough question to end with, but what do you guys think?
Depends what platforms are you guys currently making your games for? That's the answer to the question.
I guess iOS and Android are the obvious answers. I've heard good things about the Kindle store. So supposedly there, the audience is not large, but
it's good.
But do you get pretty good revenues, and it's very easy if you've made an Android game, just take it over there. But we always Unity. So from our perspective, if something comes along, they seem to support any dominant platform.
That was my answer. Unity.
Yeah, that's the platform.
That's the one to support.
Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for your questions as well. If you want to hit me up with questions for future guests, it's Guy Cocker on Twitter. All right, time for this week's news section. This week's news focuses on mobile development in particular. So let's kick things off. Simon, you've dropped this story into the running order, so thanks very much for that. XCOM launching on iPad, or has actually launched on iPad. Premium price points, so $19.99 in the US. I think I saw it for £11.99 in the UK. But offers a full AAA experience. Is it? I mean, it's the same as the PC game?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I find so interesting is, whereas you've had other games like GTA 3, which have come out like maybe 5-6 years after release, this is 6 months? 8 months after the release on 360 and PC for, what is it, £40, full price release, and now it's the full game, it's not cut down. Whereas other games you have tried to cut down into, kind of a smaller experience and make a bespoke experience for tablet, they've gone for the whole thing. Sure. And I wonder whether this is, going to be a trend now as these devices get more and more powerful, whether people now are starting to plan their projects for 2015 thinking there's something we need to make sure that it runs across all platforms. And the thing that's encouraging as well is there is obviously a market for it. Last time I checked it was like certainly in the top 10 on iPad paid apps. For a game that's that much money, it means that that there is space for a really, really broad range of products in the App Store, and there's obviously there's support from players to download it.
There's a lot of excitement in my Facebook feed. I know it's anecdotally, but there's a lot of excitement about the release of this game.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously it's a great game, but the fact that it's a kind of guess in inverted commas full PC experience on tablet was definitely a selling point. Have you guys played XCOM at all?
Yes, I played it on PC. I mean, I'm super excited for the time. I mean, we've got the new generation of consoles coming out now, and if they're running on a 10-year life cycle again, it could be 5 years from now. It's simultaneous release on mobile and console, and they look exactly the same. Like that'll be amazing at the time.
So, what do you guys think about the next generation of consoles? Were you at E3? Were you watching E3? I mean, is there any excitement there?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think if for no other reason than to wake up the console developers, give them a bit of a slap in the face, because console games have been really suffering from an identity crisis for the last couple of years, I think, in the face of lowering sales and the march of the mobile platforms, etc. There's definitely a bit of a rot has set in, where there's the sort of, it seems like the scope of games and the ideas are narrowing even further than they were, and the mega hits are even more mega than ever, and it's like I said, the sort of pool is drying up of interesting ideas on the consoles. And so, I mean, as a console gamer, I was very excited to see them come, even though they're basically PCs in a box. I was still really excited that I still look at mobile and consoles as we're just gamers, and we're just part of the gaming ecosystem. They're not separate in my head. Right. And it feels like with console, it feels like if we were a boxer, we're punching with one hand at the moment, and I want the consoles to come back so we can punch with both. That's the way I would look at it. Is consoles can give a fucking great right hook, basically, and people, nowadays we're encouraged not to think of them as being very interesting, or the mobile is where it's all happening and blah 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 blah. But they have their own. The consoles have their own inherent strengths, which are awesome when they're well done. I mean, you just only have to remember back to your favourite gaming moments, right? And they're just amazing when they happen correctly. So I hope to God they get off their feet again, and they start coming out with some really good stuff.
Like we're sat here bigging up mobile development and everything else, but I think I speak for all of us when we say I can't imagine a time in the near future where I won't A, own a console, or B, be playing on my PC.
And I say that as an obvious geek, right? So I'm not expecting everyone to do what I do, but certainly I own, I I'll own both consoles when they come out. I won't particularly care one way or the other.
We preempted my next question. What are you guys? Where are you guys then falling? Are you more PlayStation or Xbox this time around?
I'm just that sucker who buys both, aren't I? That's what's going to happen.
So you and Barry at the front of the queue both times. November.
Yeah, totally. It's win-win.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned.
What about you, Simon?
I've already got a Wii U, so I guess I don't know what generation that
That's
is.
next gen.
So hopefully some more guitars come out for that. But yeah, I'll probably get both as well. But I think the thing is that as you're saying, as enthusiasts, as gamers, I think that's not going to be a problem. People are going to love playing console games will continue to buy console games. I think the biggest problem they're going to have is it's going to be more and more an enthusiast prospect because like if a lot of people pushed the Blu-ray was a big thing for people that were buying the PS3. It was like here's something we could buy for something else. And the new one, speaking of friends that don't play games, I don't get much enthusiasm from them for either of them because they're like, so what what can it do? What's the special thing about it? And it's a really hard sell. You look at the videos and like look at games like the new God of War. It looks amazing and like the details are so rich. And you say, well, how much better can it get? And I think that's going to be the thing they're up against. It's weird. Like most recently, the thing I've shown friends that aren't one of the US gamers, the thing they've been most excited by has been the Oculus Rift. And
totally.
You put that on them and they're just like, whoa, this is unbelievable. And
then they vomit, but they still go, whoa.
Almost all of them, it's just like so sick inducing. But it's interesting like that is, and
it's
not a graphic
amazing,
fidelity. It offers something that's really new and really exciting. And
that feels like the future. When you put it on, you're just like, wow. Put on a PS4 or an Xbox One. I'm not sure you'll get the same.
You don't have the wow moment.
You won't get the wow.
There was a 5-minute demo at E3 that the guys from CCP had knocked together, and it was fairly basic from a gameplay perspective, but I would have queued again and again.
They're actually making a standalone game for Oculus, aren't they? As far as I know. I don't know if it's standalone, but I know that they're making it based around the Oculus. An FPS.
What's the sexy time one? Sexy adventure game.
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
I heard about this.
On Kickstarter, wasn't
it? The guy saying it's going to be quite a classy affair. Erotica.
Yeah.
How classy can it be if you say this is an erotic adventure?
That will make you sick.
Yeah. You're still.
Stop that. What do you? This is a very cheeky, loaded question, but would you be tempted to jump back in? I hear Sony are throwing money around, Simon. Are you tempted to jump back in bed with those guys? And
I think for us, we're pretty small, so staying on a platform that we really come to is important. And it's not that appealing. There's a lot of we found there's a lot of infrastructure needed around the launch of a game that you need on top of the capacity. And I think we're working with a partner on a new game. We work with a partner on Rolando and the Rolando series, and I think for us, this is definitely the way we want to work, rather than going back to self-publishing. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's not for us.
And then the next news story, again, you pulled out, Simon. You're doing my job for me. Thank you very much. Apple iOS game controller support announced at WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference. I was in a Microsoft press conference during all this, so I kind of missed it. I never caught up, but I brought along a controller, which is somewhere around here, which is being made by a company called Moga, which kind of glimpses at what this could be for iOS. So basically, third-party game controller support could be coming to iOS.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting thing is, this has been around for a while with like the iCade and the iCade Mini and people putting in support for a few different competing systems. There's like a Mac as well. There's like another.
Yeah, there is a Mac as well. Yeah.
But because they're standardizing it, and presumably these devices are going to be sold in Apple stores, it becomes a thing that's officially supported. That you're going to see more and more games, I think, support this. But the thing I think is most interesting is, I don't know if you notice in terms of a lot of games that are on every other platform that aren't on mobile tend to be games that don't fit mobile very well. So games like Limbo is everywhere except iOS. Games like Braid are except iOS because they're platform games and Twitch controls just don't work. So I think you might see all these kind of pent up ports now start moving across, which I think will do a little bit more to sway the core gamers that have written off touch controls and can actually deliver an experience that this controller will work with a huge number of games, and if they get enough of a groundswell before the launch of iOS 7, I think it could be an interesting kind of increase in that segment of games that so far has been absent from iOS.
It sounds exciting, but part of me wonders, the question always is, why haven't Apple done this already? And from what I understand, Steve Jobs was quite against it from a design perspective, and the interface on the iPhone is what the interface on the iPhone is. But, you add in all these controllers. Barry, what do you think? Is it a good thing adding a controller and perhaps complicating that interface for people, or is it going to be a good thing?
I don't know. I think Apple probably felt forced to do it because other people were making them anyway, and rather than they love to control peripherals, right? So rather than hand that market over to someone else, I guess they they decided to support it, and maybe they're I think that's probably what it was. It's just they simply they are finally admitting that their games business is actually relevant now, which they haven't done typically.
It's been for a while as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think maybe I don't know what it is. Maybe like 5 or 6 billion just isn't enough to register with them or something. But it's nice that they are. It's nice that they are seeing it. But I think like historically, the company has not really ever thought of games as a serious Apple.
Sure.
But I guess they are now.
So this device Mogo, which I've been showing to the guys here, is just being released in the UK, and I think we're probably going to see more of these devices come on both Android and iOS soon. The next story is Warframe developer saying that he feels it's riskier for a mid-sized firm to go mobile and free-to-play, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts about this. Digital Extreme's creative director Steve Sinclair has said that while most mid-sized studios would rather play the safe card by developing a mobile title, to them it's just as risky as going free-to-play, like with Warframe. Speaking with GI International, Sinclair said even members of the team have asked why it isn't developing something for phone or tablets. He said, I suppose internally over the last few years we've had a lot of the team ask why we weren't making a tablet game or why we aren't making phone games. It seems like it's feast or famine there and the team sizes are much smaller than ours, and we wanted to keep the people we had. If you get 2 or 3 guys and take a shot at mobile, it's probably awesome for you, but for a mid-sized developer like us, it's even riskier than going free to play. I don't know if you guys have been in a similar situation to this. Would you agree with those sentiments at all? Would going mobile is riskier than free to play? Simon, you go.
Well, I was just thinking, one exception to that I can think of recently is, Creative Assembly did Total War, Shogun Total War, I think reasonably well, and it looks like they took their experience in a very well-known brand to iPad, and I think we're able to obviously get their fan base on that. They already had an existing audience, so perhaps it's less risky if you've got something that suits the device well. And I think they made a small team. It wasn't like they had to put on like 150 people. So I guess it depends. If the implication is, are we going to make a 150-man team, huge scale project? Obviously, that's an enormous risk, but I don't think there's anything about the size developer that says they couldn't make a small team doing a special experimental project that is lower risk, that leverages their existing fan base or existing IP. So I don't know if I agree.
It's changed a lot though recently, hasn't it, Barry? Where free to play has finally become feasible on console. If you were starting Fireproof today, would you go, well, we can make a free to play game like Warframe or like Dust 514 or anything like that, rather than a mobile title? Well,
we never had any money when we started anyway, so it's kind of moot. No, like as in we couldn't have done anything but what we did, I think. Right. But from what he's saying, he's probably correct in that there probably is an awful lot of applied knowledge, acquired knowledge in his studio of how to do these kind of games really well, and he probably didn't want to give that up and start all over. So I think it's perfectly sensible what he said. I mean, to translate that into console gamers can't make mobile games, though, I think it would be a sort of parody of what he said. I think he was more just talking about, and the fact he said it quite bluntly. He's got a big team and he didn't want to fire people, and that's a big consideration. And also, there isn't that much talent getting a chance to show their stuff on console anymore or PC. So if he has that chance, he should go for it. Just as much as if he had a chance on mobile, he should go for it, I think.
Sure. My next story is from Forbes. This is the man who proposed through a mobile game. He said, so this was a story of a guy called Brett in the US. He emailed Jericho Games, the developer of Phase Friends, asking if they could tailor a puzzle game, especially for his girlfriend. A few hours later, he got a reply saying they'd love to help. Brett gave them the phrase that he needed to propose, and the developers started tinkering on their new ad hoc project using the development platform Corona SDK, made by Corona Labs. It was our first marriage proposal on record, said a spokesperson. In about 6 hours, and by the time Alex had got back from work, the developers had finished and Brett was a nervous wreck. They told me all I had to do was start a new game with her, and no matter what the category, that would be the puzzle. Brett started the game, it wouldn't work. He quickly shot them another email. They put every available developer onto it to correct the problem. The next day after work, Brett started at the all-important puzzle, and as he and Alex sat out on their patio again, he was sweating profusely, thinking she was going to quit playing and that he'd have to wait even longer. She kept saying she couldn't figure out what this puzzle was. Alex was thrown off by her own name and kept sounding the letters until she guessed the letter R, and finally looked up at him in surprise. Brett took his cue and dropped to one knee, and the rest is history. Have you guys had any similar requests like this? This was a big story on forums this week. Anyone asked to propose for any of your games? Maybe not the room. Kind of odd.
I think it's great if you can do it. Like,
would you respond to that?
I think I would do.
Lots of requests
if you can make someone's day, make one person's perfect day the most perfect.
Sure.
I've actually got a funny story about stuff like this. Like, I remember the first time I sort of witnessed a proposal or a marriage in a game. Like, I used to play a lot of EverQuest when I was younger, and I remember one time I was knocking around one of the newbie areas up in the trees. And there was about 40 people there, all of like different races and classes and stuff.
Gathered round.
It was like a gathered round MMO marriage, and all I could hear was there was like a shaman, and he was doing it in all chat, all in the zone. He was like, "Do you take such and such, the dark elf, whatever, for this and this and that?" And then he got to the point where he said, "Can anyone think of any lawful impediment as to why this person and this person can't get married?" And then suddenly, out of nowhere, there's just a huge naked ogre comes running towards the front of the ceremony and says something along the lines of, "If Grunk cannot have pretty, pretty has nobody." And he kills her. He just bludgeons her with a spiky club. And then his friend drags her corpse over the top of the trees and jumps off.
No way.
At which point, there's about a 40 or 50 or 60 man chaos in this. I love MMO weddings. They're the best.
That's awesome. What about you, Barry? Have you had any requests come into the studio?
No,
Proposal or otherwise?
No, I don't think anything like that has happened. No.
No autograph requests? I mean, you said you had quite a few people get in touch to say they enjoyed the room.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have had people get in touch to say, "Can you remove the satanic symbols from the game?"
Right.
Yeah. So that's quite strange. Or rather, is there any way I can remove the satanic symbols from this game? No one told me there was going to be a black magic or something they would call it.
Voodoo.
Probably people from the American South.
Is that, I was going to say, is that the risk of having that sort of imagery in a game that's obviously popular in America?
Yeah, I mean, it's a factor there. I mean, it's amazing. It blows my mind that people would even think that. But there was one person I remember who contacted and said, no one told me there was this kind of devil, markings in the game and all that, because there's like this symbols that appear in the game that are, but we explained to her that, look, they're completely made up. They're not. They're just squiggles on a piece of paper. They're not actually symbols of anything ever. Like, no devil was harmed in the making of this game. So, and she, like, once she heard that, she was like, "Oh, okay, then, so that's okay," and she let that go.
Right. It's good that you responded to her.
But you'd be surprised how many people have said that to us,
right,
of our American customers. Like, it would kind of shock you.
It was good that you spend the time.
It happens quite a lot.
Most people would just be like,
"Well, I just think our game's so innocuous. Like, I mean, how do these people like play console games? I mean, they must be getting shot. They must be nervous wrecks.
But there are review sites out there that list games in terms of the content, so you can make sure that it's pre-filtered and pre-approved.
That's right, and it doesn't say whether or not it's got pro or anti-Christian imagery in it, does it? It's just like sex, violence, Satanism.
I think that's the cool thing about being on a small team, though, as well. Like, it doesn't have to go through a PR filter to get back to people. I think I ended up replying to most of our low-score reviews for Blip personally. Just saying, I'm sorry you feel this way. Blah blah blah. We'll hope that we'll make some changes and you'll like it a bit more in the future. You never would have been able to do that if I wasn't Microsoft.
No, absolutely not.
Do you want to do that, Dan? I always see that as a dark hole you don't want to go down, where you start addressing all the negative.
Well, I think it depends how far you go down it. I mean, I think it's important to have a relationship with your user base as best as you can, and I think people really respond to that.
It sounds as though you're taking the critical feedback on positively and not being like, well,
that's the plan. Yeah.
What about you, Simon? Have you had any weird requests come in?
No, we haven't. I love this. There's people using video games to make marriage proposals. Remember the guy that turned Link into a girl, or Mario into a girl in Donkey Kong, or one of the other Nintendo games, Hacking the Rome, and all that stuff's great. That's a nice thing. People see it as it's kind of hobbyist thing now that people can go and make these little changes and make variations. I think was more malleable.
Was that his daughter that was always having to save the princess?
And he didn't want to save the princess.
Right.
It's very nice. Well, thanks very much, Simon, for pulling out those stories. You can find out more about them. I will include a link in the show notes to the document. Time to talk about what we've been playing at the moment, what my guests have been playing, what's on their radar, anything else that might be of interest. Simon, let's start with you. Are you playing any games at the moment? Have you got any tips for our listeners?
Yeah, so on iOS, I've been playing Icebreaker, the new game, Revia Stars. Right. It's made by Nitro, who I think just around the corner. Wonderful game, really great, nice puzzle game, perfect for iOS. Physics-based puzzler, so you slash ice to make different blocks form and cut into different pieces and slide around. It's just really well thought out. It's funny. It looks like
Icebreakers.
Icebreaker, yeah. Icebreaker of Viking Voyage, I think it's called.
Right. Okay.
So I've been playing that. On 3DS, been playing New Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem. And also started to play, I already finished XCOM on PC, but started to play it through an iPad. Just really curious to see, I don't know whether that's worked, but yeah, just kind of really interested to see how they've adapted to touchscreen.
Of course, yeah, I haven't played the iPad version, but I love the PC original.
Yeah,
so
me either.
I need to check it out. And so everyone's playing Animal Crossing, but I'm interested to get your thoughts on it. I was describing it, I was reviewing it for some broadcast stuff that I was doing, and it's impossible to describe the mechanics of that game without it sounding incredibly twee, and that it's kind of difficult to describe the enjoyment that you get out of it.
Yeah,
like it's.
I think it's just, it feels like a world that reacts to you in ways that other places don't, and
Sure.
it's all the small things that are really subtle and really really interesting. We've been playing with a bunch of friends, myself, my girlfriend, and two other friends, all bought it on release day, and we're kind of now online and playing and sending messages to each other, and little interesting things happen. So there's a guy at Kate's work was playing it with three girls from no, she works at Reloading around the corner. And when you go to this little island, there's a little guy that rows you there, and he says, hey Chris, you're a real hit with the ladies. So, it's just like little thought that if you go here and here and here, interesting things happen, and little things happen about, so they, I think I saw, maybe Cristiano's review of it, and he was saying that, just these little surprises come up, like you played 3 weeks, and a letter you wrote to one of the animals, say, that letter you wrote to me 3 weeks ago, whenever I'm feeling sad, I reread it. It's really great. And it's just weird little ways that kind of make you feel bound to the world, and make you feel like, you're a part of it, that other games, fail to capture. It's so charming and so lovely.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but that's just a piece of programming. There's no.
It's the surprises, though. Yeah.
There is that element to it, though. Obviously, the last game in the series did have that online element, but it feels like that game really needed social media to come about, so there are Facebook groups and everything else that sort of. I mean, I was ill after E3 last week. I left my gates open, so to speak, and loads of people had dropped loads of like little fruit and golden pears and stuff. It's got that element to it that really is the social connection that makes it, I think. And then Fire Emblem as well, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
it's a great game. Anything to add? Is it like just enjoying it?
No, I mean it's great. I haven't played any of the previous ones. Big fan of Class Wars, so this time dived in, and it's really good. It's very just amazingly well done. Yeah, it's great, really fun. I don't know if I can add anything more than the massive praise that's written online already.
Being said, Barry, do you get any time to play games? Anything you're playing at the moment?
Oh, I play it. Yeah, I spend a lot of time playing games. I would play games for hours every day of my life, pretty much. At the moment, I think in the last few months, there's been a bit of a lull on iOS stuff for me. There was nothing really exciting. I don't know if other people are finding that. There's been loads of like really sort of impactful stuff coming out, but I'm still, taking up my time playing a lot of stuff. I'm playing a lot of Scurvy Scallywags recently, which I'm not a big fan of match 3 games, but I think that's great. It's really well put together, and it's just joyous. It's one of those games that just celebrates gaming, and so that's very cool to play. It's very slick. And then also I've actually been replaying Kingdom Rush, because I bought the HD one, the Frontiers, and finished that really quickly, and it inspired me to go back and play the other one. So I played that again last night, and so I've started doing that. And then on PC, I haven't played it. I haven't actually sat with a PC game for a long time. I've been checking out lots and lots of different games, but I haven't actually found one. Probably since Far Cry 3, actually, that I actually sat down and sat. Oh, but the other part is we're getting our house renovated and have been for the last 6 months. So I haven't played any console games in 6 months. So I'm sort of stuck on my PC and my.
So the consoles are packed away.
Yeah, so I haven't played any of the big releases. So and there has been some mega releases in that time, so I'm sick to death of avoiding people and blocking my ears when people are having conversations.
Do you think they'll make it out of the closet or wherever they are now?
Oh, hell yeah.
Like, because obviously consoles are 5 months.
Yeah. No, we're almost finished. So yeah, like in a month's time I would hope to have my front room back and be able to get back into it. So I mean, there's been so many good releases on console recently that have completely passed me by.
Is there any that are on your radar? I mean, the one for me is Beyond that I'm looking forward to.
I was quite looking forward to The Last of Us, now that that's out. What else? Gosh. Yeah, there's been quite a few. I mean, I didn't even play the last Assassin's Creed. You know, I've missed just a boatload, to be honest. And I have like piled this high unopened boxes on, in my
game
in my
of
house.
shame, yeah.
No, I would not. I'm no interest in racing games at all. I like making them, but not
playing. Yeah. What about you, Dan? What are you playing?
Yeah, same as Barry. I've just got a massive stack just full of games I've not managed to play. That's the thing. All you want when you're younger is to come and make games, and then once you are able to make games, you no longer have time to play as many games as you'd like. I've probably got a list of stuff in Steam at the minute that's not been played. Yeah. I mean, iOS-wise, I was mentioning to these guys earlier, I've been playing a lot of Might and Magic Clash of Heroes, which is really, really, really good. As you were saying, I probably wouldn't have assumed that I was into Match 3 games, but now I am.
Yeah.
It's just like a little entry point.
Yeah.
I was playing a bit of Impossible Road as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a cool little experiment. And I think it's Deep Dungeons of Doom.
Yes, I started playing that last week. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's quite cool. It's quite cool.
I'll try and add links to all these on
it's the way I tried to think about it was, it's like you try to strip down Demon Souls as much as possible into just a one-touch, two-touch mechanic.
Did you play?
It's quite hard.
Did you play Slaying when that came out?
No.
That's very cool as well. It's like a one-touch roguelike, but it's so charming. It's very, very good. You should check it out.
And I've also gotten into playing Dota 2 on my PC,
right?
Which again is probably
going to moved on from League of Legends onto Dota.
Well, I play a little bit of both. Play a little bit of both.
And so, just to describe some of the atmosphere at the studios. I mean, I know us two. I think the most have dropped by the studio a few times.
Yeah.
Do you have gaming evenings? Do you have LAN parties or anything like that?
Yeah, we've played a little bit of Street Fighter in there. A couple of us are quite keen in there. We've been playing a lot of board games as well recently.
Yeah.
As I was saying, we've been having like every Wednesday night we have a bit of a board game night. So last week consisted of a good old classic game of Settlers of Catan.
Yeah. And
we played a game called Citadels as well, which is really good. That's really cool for us to get on with. But yeah, just the general feeling around the studio has just been, we're very much in this New Dawn state at the moment where everyone's just excited.
Mm.
What about you, Barry? Do you have gaming nights at the studio or anything like that? Kind of?
No.
No?
No. But no, I think we've been together a long time now. Like, gosh, 10 years. We must be going into our 10th year together.
Because when you said, I think at the sort of halfway through the show, you kind of intimated that a lot of the people that joined Fireproof came from your old colleagues.
Yeah, we're like about 80% Criterion people who we all worked on Burnout together. So
they've been in the business like yourself for 20 years.
Oh no, I'm the oldest. No, they're most of them are younger than me, but in fact all of them are. No, but what I mean is at Fireproof we're together we're going into our 5th year of business now, and then I was myself and at least 2 of the other 6 of us that started Fireproof were in Criterion for 5 years before that. So yeah, we've been working together a long time. So no, we don't do game nights as such. in that respect, we kind of just get on with our work.
Good stuff. Well, my tips this week are, I've been playing Deadpool. The embargo for that is tomorrow, but if you follow me on Twitter, I'll post the review of that. The only game I've been playing with my wife is Game & Wario. You're a Wii U fan, Simon. It's probably not one to pick up, but I just got the Wii U, and in the absence of other party games to play, I know that what's it called? The one that's bundled with the console. Nintendo Land can be quite fun in multiplayer.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun over Christmas. Took it back, and my whole family were playing it.
As long
we
as
had nieces, nephews, my mum and dad playing it. It's amazing. I mean, it's a hard sell, I think, when you show people the tablet, because with the Wii, it's like, oh, okay, I get this. But when you have people playing it, it's amazing. And the mini games are really well done.
What's the Ghost one?
That's brilliant.
The Ghost one's brilliant, isn't it? I'd play through that.
Yeah. So one of you is the ghost that has the controller, and the rest of you kind of run around trying to spot the ghost.
Yeah.
The Mario Chase is brilliant. The Animal Crossing one, we have to collect little sweets and put them in your bag.
Yeah.
And you get ready to.
And you get chased.
Yeah,
it's really good.
It's really great. I mean, that's what they did best.
Yeah.
Well, Game & Wario isn't worth. I would say it's not worth buying, but I will lend you a copy, Simon, so you can have a go.
How generous!
But yeah, Game & Wario is out this week. In fact, talking about the games that are out this week, we've got Company of Heroes 2, which might be one for you on the strategy side. I played a little bit of this last night. It's good pedigree. The first game was a classic.
Definitely me.
And you as well, Barry. Spartacus Legends, Deadpool, which I mentioned already. Ride to Hell Retribution, Game & Wario, Doodle Jump for Kinect. That's coming out on Kinect. I had no idea until I looked that up. Pain and Killer, Hell and Damnation is coming to consoles, and Scribblenauts Unlimited. That was cancelled on or postponed on Wii U for reasons unknown. It's finally making its way to the Wii U. So not a bad week for games.
I'm going to play Spartacus.
Spartacus,
yeah.
Into that.
I'm a massive Spartacus fan. I've got a feeling it's going to be really bad.
But is it actually based in the TV series? Or
yes, based on the TV series, yeah. Okay.
It's an Xbox 360 arcade title. One I haven't had a chance to play is State of Decay. Have you seen that one at all? It's on the Xbox 360 arcade. Everyone's playing it at the moment. Well, thanks very much for your time, guys. Really appreciate it. I just want to say thanks to my guest, Dan. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Where can people find more of your work in particular, and also ustwo's?
Just at ustwo games on Twitter and at Dan_Gray as well.
Good stuff. Barry, do you use Twitter on Twitter?
I do. Fireproof_Barry, and Fireproof Games is our company one.
Good stuff. And work in
progress. We have. I can definitely say we have an expansion coming out for the room in about 2 months.
Cool.
And then we're also hard at work on the sequel, which we hope to have out by end of the year.
Cool, good stuff. And slight plug for myself, if you're a developer and you're going to be at the Develop Conference, I'm going to be speaking to Barry on Thursday morning.
Yes, 10 a.m.
10 a.m, so be there.
The morning after the award ceremony.
It's worse for me, I'm flying back from San Francisco the previous day.
Oh, really? Okay, you're worse. Okay, fair enough.
And then Simon, what about yourself?
So we're just handcircus on Twitter and handcircus.com online, and my personal one is Simon Oliver UK.
Good stuff. Guys, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for joining
me.
Having us. I also want to say a massive thanks to everyone that's downloaded the first 10 episodes of the show. The podcast has been really successful, so thank you. I've been blown away by all the support. I do listen to all your comments, so if you have any feedback, please send any comments, positive or negative, to podcast@guycocker.com, and I'll be like Dan, I will be answering everything. Next week, I'll be joined by games journalist Philippe Boscher and Chris Slight. Keep an eye on twitter.com/GuyCocker for more updates, or just subscribe in iTunes to have them delivered as soon as they're available. And if you're feeling particularly generous, leave me a review or rating on iTunes. I will see you next week.